I'm aware that you guys have been saying in the comments for a while, watch out, Russell, they're coming for you, you're getting too close to the truth. Russell Brand did not kill himself. I know that a year ago there was a spate of articles. Russell Brand's a conspiracy theorist. Russell Brand's right wing. I'm aware of news media making phone calls, sending letters to people I know for ages and ages. It's been clear to me, or at least it feels to me, like there's a serious and concerted agenda to control these kind of spaces and these kind of voices. And I mean my voice along with your voice.
And then Russell Brand has remade himself. And in the period where I've known Russell, which is really the past 3 or 4 years, Russell has been a person who is searching for something meaningful. He has settled down. Obviously, he's married. He has kids. He's a person who's been trying to put together a good life. Now, can I attest to Russell Brand's character from 2006 to 2013? Again, I cannot. I did not know him at that point. Do I think that Russell Brand today is a good person? Yes, I think that Russell Brand today is a good person.
I wish I could say it's surprising that conservatives are now defending people from extremely credible allegations of rape and sexual assault and even grooming, because apparently they hate grooming. They see grooming around every single corner. When a drag queen reads a children's book to a group of school kids, that is grooming them in gender ideology and sexual degeneracy. But when Russell Brand is accused of sending a taxi to a high school to pick up a 16-year-old girl who then is taken to his house where he sexually assaults her, not only are they not staying silent on this, they are actively defending Russell Brand now. And it just shows you that if you want to escape consequences for even the most heinous crimes of things like rape and grooming minors, just become a conservative. They don't give a shit. Literally couldn't care less. Either acting extremely stupid and not understanding like libel laws in the UK or the media landscape, in that if the Times and Sunday Times and Channel 4 were completely making this up as a hit piece, Russell Brand could easily sue them. But Russell Brand himself is using the excuse of, oh, I'm being targeted by the powerful. I was onto something and they wanted to destroy me. And loads of conservatives are playing into that narrative. And yeah, we're going to talk about all of this today, the absolute staggering hypocrisy, and also the notion that Russell Brand is being taken down for speaking truth to power is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, Russell Brand in 2014 spoke more truth to power than Russell Brand in 2023. He's the face of Rumble. He pals around with Donald Trump's family. He goes on Fox News. He hangs around with loads of millionaire conservatives. I didn't realise speaking truth to power was being a conservative grifter. And also people are saying he's being cancelled. Cancelled now is if you are credibly accused of rape and sexually assault, including of minors, I guess Jeffrey Epstein was also cancelled. Because that is the argument these people are using. If we follow their arguments defending Russell Brand, you would also have to believe that we couldn't say Jeffrey Epstein was guilty until his second conviction, right? After the first one, no big deal. He was only charged with, like, soliciting prostitutes and stuff like that. Not that he was grooming and raping minors. And Bill Cosby as well. Apparently now, we can't say he's guilty because he was let off, right? Even though he was convicted, apparently now, because in the court system, Bill Cosby is a free man. But we know, right? And that's what these conservatives fail to understand. Yes, sometimes we need to wait for the court verdict to decide if someone is guilty or innocent, right? But then there are other times when so much evidence comes out, corroborating testimony, massive allegations, and even in Russell Brand's case, text messages as well. So much evidence, so much research has gone into this, and the fact that Russell Brand isn't immediately suing the Times, the Sunday Times, and Channel 4 tells you everything they need to know, because yes, these organisations are very aware of libel laws, and they've probably had an army of lawyers go over every single thing a million times to make sure that Russell Brand can't sue them. Which it very much looks like he is not doing, by the way. But apparently, trial by social media. They're acting like one person literally wrote a tweet accusing Russell Brand or something. And I'm convinced that most conservatives have not actually read the Times report. It's insanely detailed. I don't think I've ever read something so detailed in terms of like allegations against a single celebrity. It's one of the most detailed and thorough pieces of journalism I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, I hate the Murdoch press as well, right? But that's where your critical thinking skills have to come into play, because you can both acknowledge how the Murdoch press undermines democracy in like a macro scale, right? You can acknowledge how establishment journalism in the UK is largely trash and is largely about protecting the powerful. But you can also acknowledge, if we take things case by case, in the case of the Russell Brand allegations, these things are insanely credible. There's loads of evidence, and you can definitely make the conclusion, like I do, that Russell Brand is a nonce who sexually assaulted people, including minors, right? Because the evidence is that strong. But anyway, all of that coming up for you today. This video is going to be demonetized by me. There might be an ad about halfway, just so I don't completely tank like the views and stuff. But let's just get straight into this today. So I'm going to give a quick rundown of all the sexual assault allegations against Russell Brand a couple days ago, and things just keep coming out, right? It's really hard to keep up with all the things he's said and done in like the early 2000s. And of course, content warning for sexual assault, rape, like this is pretty hard to hear. But I will say, I'm just going to read a Guardian summary. If you are somehow not convinced, and you haven't read the Times piece, and you haven't watched the Channel 4 documentary, at the very least, go read the Times piece, because you will be convinced after that. Because you'll realise how thorough the investigation has been on something that has largely been an open secret, apparently, in the comedy circuit and in parts of Hollywood. So, a timeline of sexual assault allegations against Russell Brand. 2006, a woman claims Brand sexually assaulted her during a 3-month relationship in 2006 when she was 16 and still in school. And Brand, then age 30, was a BBC radio presenter and the host of Big Brother's Big Mouth. She told the Sunday Times they had met when Brand had approached her in Leicester Square after she had been shopping, proceeded to go through her shopping bags and critique her purchases. She said he took out a dress and said, "You're going to wear this on our date this week." She claimed she told her mother, who advised her to text Brand and tell him her age, that he was undeterred, and on the date asked her to confirm she was 16. The woman said that over the following weeks, Brand referred to her as the child, and she alleged that he was controlling and sexually and emotionally abusive. She said he sent a car to her secondary school to take her out of lessons and asked her to save his name as Carly in her phone to deceive her parents. He also allegedly gave her scripts on how to lie to her parents and advised her to hide the relationship from her friends, describing the experience as isolating. The woman and a family member described Brand's behaviour to the Sunday Times as grooming. Pretty clear grooming of a minor there, but don't worry, people crusading against the grooming by drag queens and a gay teacher working in your school apparently don't care about that. And if you want to read even more gross details about this grooming by Russell Brand, read the Times piece, because it is actually way worse than what I've just read you. And that should tell you how serious this is and how severe these allegations are. 2007, Jordan Martin alleges Brand sexually assaulted her and was physically and emotionally abusive towards her during a 6-month relationship from February 2007. She claims he assaulted her at the Lowry Hotel in Manchester when he became angry after finding out she had spoken to an ex-boyfriend and ripped her phone case apart to pull out the battery before touching her sexually. She said she was not ready for the intrusion and did not find it pleasant. Martin made the allegations in a book published in 2014. She declined to be interviewed by the investigative reporters, but she told the Sunday Times she stood by her account. 2012, a woman alleges that Brand raped her against the wall at his LA home in July 2012 after she refused to join him in sexual activity with a friend of Brand. She alleges that she told Brand to get off her and that she wanted to leave, but he carried on and briefly blocked the door to prevent her from leaving afterwards. And you can actually see a text exchange about this. She told the Sunday Times she was treated at a rape treatment centre that same day and had therapy treatment there for 5 months. Records seen by the Sunday Times show she contemplated criminal or civil proceedings, but ultimately decided against it. After the incident, Brand sent her a text apologising for what happened, describing his behaviour as crazy and selfish. It happened the same month that Brand's divorce from the singer Katy Perry was finalised. 2013, a woman who told the Sunday Times she had met Brand at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting before they started working together, claims he sexually assaulted her at his home in LA. She alleges he tried to kiss her, remove her clothes as he pinned her down, and she shouted him to stop. "I was screaming, 'What are you doing? Stop, please, you're my friend,' she says." She claims he eventually relented, but he flipped and shouted at her, saying she was fired. She claims that years later she spoke to someone who had been working on a project with Brand and was outside the house at the time of the incident. He allegedly apologized for not helping her and said, "I heard you screaming. We were also scared of him." Brand allegedly threatened the woman later with legal action if she told anyone about her allegation, and she said she never formally reported him because she feared it would affect her career. 2020, the woman who claimed she was sexually assaulted by Brand during a 3-month relationship when she was 16 contacted his agent at the time. She said a lawyer representing Brand contacted her denying the allegations and claiming she was looking for money. So like I said, that's a rundown of the allegations. There's been plenty more stuff that's come out recently. Apparently more women contacting reporters and the police about Russell Brand's behaviour. Lots of stuff coming out about how this was an open secret in the comedy circuit. Everyone knew he was a dirtbag. And yeah, you read that, it has multiple allegations, all very credible, reported by the Sunday Times, The Times, and Channel 4, which include grooming and sexually assaulting a minor, raping someone, sexually assaulting another person. And yeah, it's just pretty nasty stuff. Russell Brand has been open about being a sex addict, which he used to try and defend himself from his allegations, but it's pretty clear that most people are taking this very seriously and are believing the women, especially when it comes with a whole thorough investigation. It very much reminds me of a mixture of Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Cosby, in that he uses his power and influence to sexually assault women and then shuts them up with his lawyers and his power, threatening to ruin their career. It's something that has happened, throughout entertainment, but basically as long as it's existed. The evidence is so clear, I feel like Russell Brand could even end up in prison if these women want to do what the victims of Cosby and Epstein did and get together to file a criminal proceeding against him. Don't know how that would really work, considering it spans across the UK and the United States. You probably have to have separate trials. But again, with the rape center evidence, with the text messages, there is a lot of evidence here that hasn't always been present in other cases that are similar to this, especially ones like Cosby, which date back so far in the past, and even Epstein. So yeah, most people who have critical thinking skills, realize how this works, have followed similar cases in the past, would realise that, yeah, these are very credible allegations, and it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that Russell Brand has a history of this stuff, and I believe these women. And conservatives love to bang on about Epstein all the time. Using my logic, you would also agree with me that Epstein was guilty before his second conviction, right? Everyone knew, lots of evidence, lots of testimony, even though he wasn't in a prison cell. Again, it was pretty clear because the stories were so credible, there was a pattern, everyone knew, there was good evidence, right? But no, apparently with Russell Brand, it's cancel culture. All these women made it up from like 2006. They've all just made it up because suddenly, because Russell Brand is a right-wing grifter, they're all scared. They're all scared. He's so close to the powerful. He's so close to exposing the powerful, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Fauci, that they took him down with the Sunday Times owned by Rupert Murdoch. So it doesn't really make sense in my opinion. And I have 2 TikToks to play for you today, sent by my friend Emily on Instagram. And the first one is basically like the mindset of like 90% of people who believe these allegations are fake. So take a look at this one.
Russell Brand. Just watched a good amount of the documentary. There are people who are accusing him of these horrible acts. They decided to not go to the police to have him held accountable, but to instead go to Channel 4 and other media outlets. Hold on a second, Jem. People who have been victims to such crimes, they may not feel comfortable going to the police. Okay. But you feel comfortable going to Channel 4 where they create an entire public documentary. Who's benefiting from this, really? You want Russell Brand to be put on trial by public opinion as opposed to take him into a court of law where you can have him held accountable for the accused disgusting actions. Why is that? Why would you want to have a public trial? Is it because you want to crush his reputation and destroy his credibility? Why is that? Why did Channel 4 only now clamp down on what they're calling unacceptable behaviour? Was it because before Russell Brand didn't have the ear of the public talking about contentious issues on certain topics that I can't say because obviously, I'll be banned? Is that why? I'm not a fan of Russell Brand, by the way. I've not really been into his comedy. I found him interesting from an intellectual point of view when he talks about certain current affairs. Again, I've got to be careful what I say. We all know what cancel culture is like when we talk about things like vaccines and so on.
There you have it. Because Russell Brand is anti-vax, they've taken him out. They want a trial in public as opposed to a trial in courts because he's getting too close to the truth. He's getting too close. And this guy's saying he doesn't like his comedy, but he likes his intellectual stuff about vaccines, right? And like I said, Russell Brand is the elite. He's part of the powerful. He's literally doing very similar behavior to Cosby and Epstein, throwing his power around to assault women and cover it up, basically. And also, the reason a lot of his stuff hasn't come out, he kept using his lawyers to block stuff coming out, right? But they think it's now. Oh, now he's a right-wing grifter who has millions of subscribers on YouTube. Now they want to take him out. And I speak more truth to power than Russell Brand. I actually speak truth to power. Russell Brand actually used to do this a bit more, used to publicly very hate the monarchy, used to hate Israel and challenge Israel, used to hate the UK government more, used to absolutely despise conservatives. What does Russell Brand do now, right? Now, since like 2020, talks about Hunter Biden, talks about Joe Biden, Fauci, never speaks about anything to do with conservatives being bad. It's all about liberals. It's all about Justin Trudeau. He's just firmly become a conservative culture war warrior. Conservatives protect the establishment. Conservatives are the establishment, especially millionaire contrarian grifters like Russell Brand. I've got two things to say here. The thought that someone could be planning this for years in advance, like there's evidence these women have tried to come forward before, right? Years in advance just to take him down now makes no sense, right? Because apparently when he was a lefty, everyone thought he was crazy and he didn't speak truth to power, but now he's a conservative. He's an enemy. He's an enemy of the elite, so they had to take him out. So why would they start concocting this massive, I don't know, conspiracy theory to take him out years ago? And one other note I want to talk about, just before we get into more conservative reaction, is I've seen a lot of people say Russell Brand became a conservative to protect himself from his allegations. And I think people actually are giving Russell Brand a bit too much credit. I don't think he's that smart. Although it would be a perfect plan, I sincerely don't think it's that smart. I just think he's an egomaniac, to be honest, right? And he saw what content was popular on YouTube. It wasn't him saying Israel was bad, capitalism was bad. It was him saying Hunter Biden is bad, Biden crime family, Fauci lied about the vaccines. Isn't that so crazy? And then he got loads and loads of new followers and new subscribers. And he saw that and he kept pandering to that. Jimmy Dore does the exact same thing, right? Used to be more, I guess, principled, left-leaning, now a conservative grifter as well. But yeah, it's the same thing, right? Money, fame. I think in Russell Brand's case, it was more ego. And maybe he did realise at some point in the last year or so that he was going to need to insulate himself from his past behaviour of alleged rape and sexual assault, right? Credible accusations here. And maybe that's why he's pandering more to the conspiracy crowd recently and actually being a right-wing grifter, right? Because Russell Brand used to pretend he was somewhere outside like the political spectrum, but now he's the face of Rumble. He's hosting conversations with Steven Crowder. He's hosting conversations with Dave Rubin, basically Tucker Carlson, all these people, right? Uncritical, saying Tucker Carlson is not a negative force in American politics, right? He's completely sold out, and he probably realised within that he could get away with his crimes if he stayed firmly in bed with conservatives. And yeah, they've all come to his defense. I thought they hated grooming of minors, at least. We all know conservatives don't really mind sexual assault. So recently, they withdrew his YouTube monetization. YouTube did. Someone tweeting, so YouTube has stopped Russell Brand from income stream for violating our creator responsibility policy. Harm based on allegations. This is very dangerous. Bev Turner, some GB News nutcase. As I've said on GB News, welcome to the future, where cancel culture will engulf us all. Cancel culture is now very credible accusations of rape and sexual assault. Jeffrey Epstein was cancelled. Jimmy Savile was cancelled after he died, wasn't he? Cancel culture, that's what it is now. If you come forward with credible accusations against a powerful person, you're trying to cancel them. Also super ironic, this person retweeting the weird Margaret Thatcher account, which is talking about getting trial from television or guilt by association. Super ironic, since Margaret Thatcher was best pals with Jimmy Savile and protected historic paedophilia in the Conservative Party. So an absolutely great person to be using to defend Russell Brand, but then you get more people. Charlie Kirk. Not only has Russell Brand been convicted of no crime, he hasn't even been charged with a crime, yet YouTube just unilaterally demonetized his channel with more than 6 million subscribers and multiple press outlets are colluding in the takedown operation. Matt Walsh, who's also spoke pretty disgustingly about 16-year-olds in the past. This is insane. YouTube is demonetizing all of Brand's accounts based on unproven allegations made in the media. He hasn't even been criminally charged with anything. The precedent being set here is extremely bad. Tim Pool, what the F? Jimmy Dore, Russell Brand is over the target, and so they use the same old trick they use against Assange. They do this to anyone who's a problem for the oligarchs. These are the easiest smears to make and the hardest to defend against. And then Ben Shapiro, allegations are now convictions in the court of social media, complete with the removal of all income. Again, these people are purposefully misrepresenting this. And aren't these guys capitalists? Don't you guys love the free market? If YouTube do not want to pay Russell Brand money for his videos anymore, they don't have to. Don't you guys like that? It's capitalism, isn't it? The same way, if they decide they don't want to pay me anymore because of my views, I don't know, on Israel, anti-capitalism, then they have the right not to do that. I, of course, would be, upset by it. I'd be mad by it. I wouldn't think that criticism breaks any terms of service or breaks YouTube's creator responsibility policy about their actions outside of their channel and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's YouTube following its own rules. This guy has been credibly accused of disgusting things in a country that is infamous for having strict libel laws. If he wanted, he could do a massive lawsuit against all of them if he thought he'd win. But what he knows is if he does this, he will definitely lose, but loads more stuff will come out. So he'd rather not do anything, and he hasn't said anything really publicly, apart from doing a show on the night this all came out. But again, don't you guys hate grooming? Apparently, drag queen story hour, grooming. Gay teacher telling his classroom that he's gay, grooming. LGBT representation in media, grooming. Andrew Tate and Russell Brand, literally grooming, sexually assaulting and raping. It's fine. Keep interviewing Andrew Tate, like Candace Owens did recently. Have breakfast with Russell Brand like Ben Shapiro, and then all this terrible stuff comes out. Oh, it's a hit piece. It's conspiracy. This is a bad precedent. And here is Ben Shapiro, disgustingly, downplaying the allegations even more.
Massive expose, supposed expose from the Sunday Times in the UK accusing Russell Brand, a person I consider a friend, of rape, sexual assault, and abuse from the period 2006 to 2013. Now, I didn't know Russell Brand at that time. My guess is if I had known Russell Brand, I wouldn't have liked Russell Brand very much at that time, considering that Russell Brand, by his own admission, in all of his writings and in all of his statements, has basically admitted to being a sect addict and incredibly promiscuous and a person who I would be considered to have engaged in incredibly vile behavior during that entire period. And then Russell Brand has remade himself. And in the period where I've known Russell, which is really the past 3 or 4 years, Russell has been a person who is searching for something meaningful. He has settled down. Obviously, he's married. He has kids. He's a person who's been trying to put together a good life. Now, can I attest to Russell Brand's character from 2006 to 2013? Again, I cannot. I did not know him at that point. Do I think that Russell Brand today is a good person? Yes, I think that Russell Brand today is a good person. Alice, whose name we have changed to protect her identity, now realizes she wasn't fine. During a relationship that lasted for about 3 months when Brand was a BBC radio presenter, she says he referred to her as the child and alleges he became increasingly controlling and then emotionally and sexually abusive. So at this time, Brand was 30, and she was apparently 16. Okay, now, in the United States, crime. In the UK, not crime. The age of consent in the UK is 16, and apparently Brand ascertained that she was 16 by asking her and checking, which means scuzzy, scumbaggy behavior, sure. Criminal behavior, no. If you're, again, in the UK, and the age of consent changes from states, I would prefer the age of consent be 18. But if you're not going to have that, then that's what it is.
So yeah, after it comes out that Russell Brand might have raped people and groomed a minor, you say he's a good person. Because what, he has a family now? And he's a conservative? So he's a good person. Make the libertarian argument that, oh, it's not illegal. It's not illegal because age of consent is 16. But Ben Shapiro there, he was basically reading the Guardian type summary. He didn't actually read what was in the actual Times article, because he knows if he started reading the stuff about him reading Lolita and getting her to read Lolita, all this grooming that went on, it doesn't matter if having a sexual relationship with someone who is 16, no matter what age you are, is technically legal, right? It fits into a pattern of him doing really immoral, gross stuff and using his position of power to influence people and groom minors. And you're saying he's a good person because you didn't know him back then, but now you know him, he's a conservative. I guess it's not a big problem, right? I guess if you do anything and then become a conservative grifter, you're okay. Jeffrey Epstein should have just started a right-wing podcast and went on Joe Rogan in like 2015. When he went to court again, none of these guys would have, said anything about him. They'd all say he was great, a nice person and stuff. That's all you have to do. All you have to say is vaccines are bad and Biden crime family, then you're credibly accused of rape and sexual harassment. Conservatives will leap out of the woodwork to defend you. And I know it's pointless to point out conservative hypocrisy sometimes, but as we all know, if this was any left-wing celebrity, they would believe it 100%, even if there was far less credible evidence. And they would totally support them getting their YouTube income removed as well. At the very least, wasn't conservatism all about, like, Christian virtues, not being promiscuous, being against, like, rape and sexual assault so much you want the death penalty for those things? But now apparently it's okay. And fundamentally, it gets to the heart of the issue that conservatives don't mind rape. Conservatives don't care about sexual assault. Most conservatives don't fundamentally care about those things. Most conservatives fundamentally do not care about things like consent. How many of these conservatives I read you also been going on about no-fault divorce? Getting rid of that as well. So women are trapped, right? They see women as men's property. And when you see someone as property, you can't do anything like rape to them, right? Just like a slave back in the day, right? And that's how they often see women in a relationship or a marriage. These people also don't understand that you can be raped in a consensual relationship where you've had consensual sex. You can have consensual sex 100 times with a person and still be raped by that person, right? These conservatives fundamentally don't understand that. Now, one more point about like the gaslighting around like, oh, it's not a court of law. It's not a court of law, so therefore it's all bullshit. We have to wait like 5 years to get the guilty verdict. We have to wait for every single one of these trials to be, finalized. Because I'm sure no one was saying Epstein was guilty before he was convicted a second time, right? When he was actually convicted for being a nonce, right? I guess no one ever said anything. So like, well, wait till we go to a court of law and find out if he's guilty. I don't think so. And another TikTok Emily sent me today I thought was good. And she just explains like the context around the Russell Brand, like grooming, rape, sexual assault stuff. Because it's important to remember about UK libel laws and the recent environment for this stuff. So let's have a listen.
I'm really glad you brought this up. In the context of the Russell Brand case, let's talk about how Sir Cliff Richard's case fundamentally changed the way the British media operate. So if you don't remember this case, essentially post-Me Too, there was a real focus on historic child sexual abuse allegations. The BBC heard from a source that Cliff Richard was next on the list and was being investigated by the police for historic abuse allegations. He hadn't been charged, he hadn't been arrested. The police then go to Cliff Richard's home to investigate this claim against him. And the BBC fly a helicopter over Cliff Richard's house while the police are doing their quote-unquote raid and broadcast that around the world. So obviously everyone then thought Cliff Richard's guilty. But it turned out he wasn't guilty. He then sued the BBC for broadcasting that. He said it was an invasion of his privacy. Their coverage led people to believe that he had done something he hadn't done with very little evidence. And he won. This was a landmark case. I cannot overstate how important this is in the world of British media. The judge basically ruled that his right to privacy trumped public interest in this case. And as a result of that, media outlets have to be incredibly careful about what they're able to broadcast and what they're able to share. They have to make sure their evidence is watertight, because otherwise they will be sued. If these claims were false, like Cliff Richard's claims were false, Russell Brand would sue. It's really, really important to understand how stringent evidence needs to be in cases like this.
So using Cliff Richard suing the BBC to prove this, right, you have to be super careful. And you have to have critical thinking, like I said. Sunday Times at times, it's trash in my opinion in a certain way. Not trashy like The Sun, in that it's just absolute garbage. It's trash in that it's very conservative and it's very old school establishment, owned by News Corp now. I just remembered now, I actually did work experience at the Times for a week in my second year of uni. Pretty nice experience overall, everyone was nice, but at the same time, there were so many Tories in the office. It was just after Brexit, you realise how conservative it is in that building. But regardless, they still have to obey media law. And they also have to make sure they're not going to cost Murdoch a fuck ton of money. So yeah, they're super careful. They said they've been working on this for like 4 years or something. And you can see there is just so much evidence that goes beyond just testimony, and just testimony can sometimes convict people as well in a court of law, but there is so much more than that. There's records of someone being treated at a rape center. There is text messages. There is so much in there. Please go read the Times report before saying shit like, he's having a trial on social media. Like I said, this isn't one person who wrote one tweet and everyone's saying he's a rapist or something. It's literally like so long, this report. Read it, please. I am saying to anyone, if you are skeptical that the powerful might be coming from Russell Brand, and I get it because it's a Murdoch paper, but read it. And seriously, I guarantee you will be convinced and you will believe these women. Now, I guess on a final note, I was actually going to make a whole video saying I was right and I was wrong about Russell Brand, because I was wrong about Russell Brand because I never factored this into anything I ever said about him. Like, I knew he used to be a sex addict, right? But for some reason, I never came across all these comedians saying shit about him. Like, I just never saw it. And that's a failing on my part. But like I said, with a lot of these people, it's an open secret, and a lot of people had alluded to this over the years. Of course, he had Jimmy Savile on his radio show, like back in the day as well. And most people were like very unsurprised. Like, there's been like Onion headlines, like most of the UK are surprised that, you know, Russell Brand hasn't already been charged with these things. So I was wrong about Russell Brand in that I never factored that in. But at the same time, I think I was right about Russell Brand, because I honestly think this element of him grifting to the right wing to survive like rape allegations, I think that's maybe something he decided to do in the last like year. I don't think it's something he's been planning for years. I saw someone the other day saying he's been planning this for 4 years. I sincerely don't believe that. Don't think he's smart enough, for one thing, and I don't think his content shifted as dramatically in that time period. It really started getting weird in like late 2021, early 2022. So maybe from that period on, he realised he had to insulate himself by getting in with this crowd. But I think what happened is he knew this was hanging over his head, gets offered an opportunity like Rumble, hang out with Steven Crowder, hang out with Donald Trump Jr., hang out with Tucker Carlson, become part of this conspiracy club, and only talk about stuff through a right-wing lens. And maybe he thought, maybe I'd be good. Maybe I could survive this. Maybe I can be like Alex Jones, who was, you know, found guilty in court of terrible things, and he's still going, right? Even though you feel like the settlement should have bankrupted him, he's still going, right? And Russell Brand is probably relying on, if they never take this to court, I can say for the rest of the time it was the deep state coming after me because I got too close to power. Again, laughable, stupid. If you think Russell Brand challenges the powerful in any way, you're a fucking idiot. I don't know how else to put that, to be honest. Anyone who has a left-wing YouTube channel who says like one bad thing about capitalism is more of a threat to the establishment than Russell Brand, who covers everything in a conservative way which is firmly establishment. Like, Russell Brand fits in with the conservative establishment of the United States, right? He's not challenging anyone by banging on about Joe Biden and Fauci. So yeah, that is it. Conservatives are hypocrites. I'm shocked, but I guess I am shocked considering how serious and how well documented these allegations are. They're still defending him from rape allegations, from grooming allegations. Like, these are very detailed. And what I think most of it is, these guys aren't reading the report. And maybe I'm thinking too highly of some of these conservatives, but I don't think they read much. And I believe if they sat down for 30 minutes, read through the Times report, I don't think in good conscience they could start saying that he's being cancelled and it's a deep state. Because it's pretty clear it's not. Because you'll be horrified by what you read. You'll be so grossed out by what you read. You won't think, oh, this was all concocted 20 years ago to fuck him up, like when he became a conservative in his 50s or something. Anyway, that's it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.